Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Beverly Hills Cops, and it's about 1 hour and 40 minutes long. And the movie starts with a montage showing off the city of Detroit, and then cutting to the main character, Axel Foley, played by Eddie Murphy, and he is an undercover cop, and he's supposed to make a deal with some drug dealers. He has like this evidence, stolen like cigarettes, like a van full of cigarettes. And the deal goes south because the real cop shows up, and he gets back to precinct at the station, and his boss yells at him, and all of his, buddies and whatnot, they make fun of him. So he just goes home, and he found out that someone has broken into his apartment, and it turns out it's his friend called Mikey, and Mikey is a former criminal, but they were friends in the past, so they hit it out together. They go to a bar and play pool, and they go back to the apartment, and Axel gets knocked out and Mikey gets killed. So later Axel gets told by his boss to go to the hospital and check his head, but at this point Axel is more bent on the revenge of Mikey, and he wants to go to Beverly Hills because there's apparently where there's supposed to be like the evidence for this case. There was something about a bail bond or something. I wasn't paying that much attention, but that's the whole thing that tied the deal together. He needs to go to Beverly Hills, so he asks his boss about if he can get a vacation to go to Beverly Hills, and that's what he does. He goes to Beverly Hills and he checks in at a hotel with a fake name. He says he's like from some like Rolling Stones magazine or something, and he gets a free room because he rants a whole lot about it. So while in Beverly Hills, Axel goes to visit his old friend called Jenny and tells her about their mutual friend Mikey's death. And she gives him some information about a guy called Victor, so he goes there to ask some questions. He's not on duty, so he's just on vacation. And he gets thrown out for asking the wrong questions, so we already know that he is the guy that probably is responsible for the whole mess. So Axel gets arrested. He doesn't tell the cops that he is in fact a cop, and he gets taken to the station. He gets interrogated, and that ends up with him having getting punched in the stomach by a detective called Taggart. And Taggart then again has to apologize for his behavior because at this place cops don't hit other cops, I guess. There's this whole thing. So he gets Jenny bails him out, from jail, and Billy Rosewood and Taggart are surveillancing Foley so he doesn't do anything stupid, so they're in a car. So what Axel does, because he sees them clearly following him around, so he orders them food, and he stuffs some bananas back in their tailpipe, and when they try to follow him later, the cars wouldn't start. He just janks and doesn't move at all. So Axel and Jenny goes to the bad guy's place, and they find like bail bonds in crates and whatnot. And Axel tells Jenny to go home. I think that was the case. And he goes to the other place by himself, which is kind of funny. He just walks in there like he owns the place, and he flashes his badge, and he says he's like some kind of inspector, and he wants to see all the papers so he can snoop around. Then he buy it because it's obnoxious and loud, and you don't mess with the inspector basically. So sometime later, Axel jumps in the back of Rosewood's car, with Taggart is also there, and surprised them because they didn't realize that he was, behind them. Kind of funny. So Axel takes Taggart and Billy to a strip club for drinks, which is this funny scene, and they manage to stop two robbers in action because Axel kind of sees this, and Billy and Taggart get replaced by two new guys because they're not actually doing a good job on keeping Axel out of trouble. So the new guys try to follow Axel around, and basically Axel just surveillance the Victor's house, and when Victor kind of leaves, he tails him, and he loses the two new guys at a red light, and he follows Victor into a fancy club. And he makes a scene taking out one of Victor's henchmen and basically tells him I'm gonna get you for what you did. You murdered Mikey, my friend, and whatnot. And he gets taken into the arrest again to the police station, and the police chief kind of asks what is going on, and he gets the whole story about the bail bonds, the drugs. I think they smuggle cocaine with some coffee grains to hide the scents from the dogs. And he basically tells the whole story about what's happening, and the lieutenant gets yelled out by the police chief because he's part of this fancy club, I guess. So what Axel does, he is supposed to go home, but he doesn't. He actually talks Billy into driving him and Jenny to this to Victor's house, I think, and not the house, but they're supposed to check out the drugs. And what happens is that Axel and Jenny gets captured and taken to Victor's house, and Billy is forced to call in like Taggart and whatnot, and there's this whole crazy mess where they join up with Axel, and Taggart and Billy try to climb like a fence, and there's a shootout, and in this commotion they're all trying to save Jenny from the bad guys, and there's some gunfire and chaos commotion, and Axel managed to shoot Victor, and also the police lieutenant is there because he went on a hunch, give the guy some backup, and everything turned out fine. The bad guys are beat and all happy, right? So at the end of the movie, there's this funny scene where the lieutenant has to lie to his chief, and throughout the movie he's been all by the books and everything, and he has to lie to his chief, and the police chief is not buying it, and he's looking at Taggart, and Taggart never lies. So Taggart just says, well, what the lieutenant said was true, so, and this is the kind of the end of the movie, and they're supposed to escort Axel to the border so they can just get rid of him because he's like in the nuisance or whatever. But he says like, well, and Billy Rosewood and Taggart are following him, and he's supposed to say, well, we can stop for a couple of drinks or something, like a flashback to the previous scene, and it's like, well, we're supposed to escort you out of the county or whatever. And Taggart said in the most stiff of the two, like, well, a couple of drinks won't hurt us, Billy, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. So what do I think about this movie? Well, I think it's funny, but it's also the thing with these old movies. They kind of are directed to a certain age group and reference humor and whatnot. And I don't think that you can show this to a current generation and they find it funny. Maybe some parts of it, but it hasn't really aged well in my opinion. So yeah, I don't think I can recommend this movie, even though I think it's funny. There's some age kind of factors too. There's a lot of homosexual jokes in there. I think one of the waiters is like gay, and he gives Foley some bananas. And there's this guy that works for Jenny. He's called Serge, and he offers Foley like a coffee with a lemon twist. And his old mannerism is, I think he plays the part very well. He come across as like this feminine or like art kind of gay person, but I don't think that humor flies today. I mean, I think it's funny because it's like, I know they're actors portraying those roles and making sense of it all, but well, it's stereotypical. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. So I don't think I can recommend it, but I think it's funny because I'm old. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening and watching, and take care.